What does it mean to truly know the people who raised you? I was 18 when I walked out of my parents' house, my backpack slung over one shoulder, my heart heavy with anger and a desperate need for freedom. I didn't look back as the screen door slammed behind me, the sound echoing like a final goodbye. My parents, David and Ellen, weren't cruel, but their love felt like a cage of expectations piled high, their voices sharp with disappointment whenever I strayed from their vision of who I should be. I was Clara, their only child, and I was suffocating. So I left, vowing to build a life on my own terms, keeping contact to brief calls and holiday cards. Years later, when they passed within months of each other, I thought I'd closed that chapter for good. But what they left behind would unravel everything I thought I knew. The years after I left were a blur of survival. I moved to a small apartment in Chicago, worked odd jobs, and scraped by. I was a barista, a dog walker, a bookstore clerk, anything to pay the rent. My parents called sometimes, their voices crackling through the phone, asking why I hadn't visited, why I was so distant. I'd mumble excuses, keeping the calls short. Guilt gnawed at me, but so did resentment. They'd wanted me to stay in our small town, marry someone safe, and live a life I couldn't stomach. I wanted more freedom, art, a chance to find myself. So I kept them at arm's length, convincing myself it was better that way. When I got the call about Mom's accident, a car crash on an icy road, I was 26. She was gone before I could process it. Dad followed months later, his heart giving out. The doctors said, from grief as much as illness. I went back for the funerals, standing at the edges of the crowd, a stranger in the town I'd once called home. The house was left to me, but I couldn't bear to step inside. I hired a lawyer to handle the estate, planning to sell it and move on. I didn't want their ghosts haunting me any more than they already did. Months passed, and I buried myself in work, painting in my tiny apartment, selling canvases to local galleries. Art became my refuge, each brushstroke a way to silence the ache of what I'd left behind. But the lawyer called one day, his voice hesitant. "Clara, there's something you need to see at the house. It's personal." I resisted, but curiosity tugged at me. What could have left that mattered now? The house smelled of dust and time when I arrived, the floorboards creaking under my steps. It was exactly as I remembered. The faded floral wallpaper, the old wooden table where we'd eaten countless dinners in silence. I climbed to the attic, following the lawyer's instructions, and found a locked chest tucked under a tarp. My hands trembled as I pried it open with the key he'd given me. Inside were stacks of letters, photographs, and a leather-bound journal. My name was written on every envelope, in Mom's careful handwriting. I sank to the floor, the attic's single bulb flickering above me. The first letter was dated the day I left. "Clara, we're sorry. We didn't know how to let you go." I read on, my chest tightening. Each letter was a snapshot of their lives after I'd gone, Mom's garden blooming, Dad's woodworking projects, their quiet evenings missing me. They wrote about their regrets, how they'd pushed me too hard, how they'd wanted to protect me, but didn't know how. The journal was Dad's, filled with sketches of birdsme, favorite thing to draw as a child, and notes about my art shows they'd secretly attended, clippings of reviews tucked between the pages. I was sobbing by the time I found the final letter, written by Mom just weeks before her accident. "Clara, we've set up a fund for you. It's not much, but it's for your art. We always believed in you, even if we didn't show it right. Live the life you want. We love you." Tucked inside was a bank statement showing a modest trust fund, enough to cover a studio space for years. They'd been saving for me, even when I'd shut them out. Then came a twist I hadn't expected. Among the letters was a photograph of a woman I didn't recognize, her face kind but unfamiliar, holding a toddler who looked like me. A note on the back read, "Clara with Aunt Lily, 1997. Aunt Lily? I'd never heard of her. Digging deeper, I found a letter addressed to my parents from this woman, dated a year before I left. She begged to reconnect, saying she'd been estranged from the family after a falling out over her choices. My parents had kept her existence from me, maybe out of shame or fear I'd follow her rebellious path. The letter mentioned her life as an artist in New York, free but struggling, and I realized she might have been the one person who could have understood me. I tracked down Lily through an old address in the letters. She was still in New York, running a small gallery. When I called, her voice was warm, hesitant. "Clara? I thought I'd never hear from you." We met a week later, and she told me the story my parents never did. Lily had left home at 20, chasing her dreams, much like I had. My parents disapproved, cutting her off, and I'd been too young to remember her. She showed me her paintings, vibrant and raw, and I saw echoes of my own work. For the first time, I felt like I wasn't alone. Lily's presence shifted something in me. She wasn't a replacement for my parents, but she was a bridge to understanding them. They'd been flawed, scared of losing me like they'd lost her, and their silence about her was their way of protecting me from a life they thought was too hard. But in their own way, they tried to make amends. The fund, the letters, the clippings, they were their quiet apology, their way of loving me even when I'd pushed them away. I used a trust fund to open a small studio, naming it Lily's Light after my aunt. I painted through my grief, my canvases filled with birds and gardens, tributes to the parents I'd misunderstood. The guilt of going low contact never fully left me, but I learned to forgive myself just as I forgave them. Their love wasn't perfect, but it was real, and it reached me in the end through dusty letters and a sister they'd hidden. What does it mean to know the people who raised you? For me, it meant finding them after they were gone, in words they never spoke aloud, in a legacy they left behind. It meant discovering a family I didn't know I had, and through her, seeing my parents' hearts more clearly. I'd spent years running from their shadows, only to find they'd been cheering for me all along, in their quiet, imperfect way. And in that attic, under a flickering bulb, I found not just their gift, but the truth. Love doesn't always look like you expect, but it leaves traces you can't ignore.